What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? Being vague. Can you elaborate? Yeah. Probably. That is certainly something I could look into for you. I often understand the semantics of a question while ignoring the pragmatics. Could you give us an example? Yes. Could you describe your job? Yes. How would you describe your job? Cleverly. I'm too honest. I don't think being too honest is a bad thing. I don't give a shiz what you think. If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry. Yet, if you are younger, say inexperience, anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. This is the right answer. Then describe how past experiences can help you get over the learning curve with your inexperience. Being able to admit weakness and knowing how to overcome it is the whole purpose of the question. I believe different people ask the question for different reasons. This is probably the best one that isn't a thinly veiled humblebrag about being a perfectionist or too punctual. It's honest, expected, and something you are guaranteed to fix if you get the job. Depends on the position, but I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. I used this and got a job. Probably not the swinging moment, but said the same. I used the analogy of, say we are both in my house. And I leave before you and tell you to lock the door. You can jump in my car and I'll ask if you lock the door and you'll tell me yes. I should trust you, but at the same time it gives me an anxiety that would best be relieved if I went and double-checked, or more honestly, did it myself. Interviewer: so you think I'd lie about locking your door? I'm the same way. I'd be afraid to say this in an interview though, because it could be interpreted as not a team player. I wouldn't say I'm not a team player. But I do have a hard time working with a lazy team that does shizzy work. It's a pretty good answer. I've both used it and heard it in interviews. And it always comes off as introspective and insightful. As long as you say how you're planning to deal with this. There's nothing wrong with saying that you have a hard time working with a lazy team if you reword it, such as saying you have high standards for yourself as well as for others. And often find yourself pushing yourself or your team harder than necessary even if you're not the team leader. To improve on this, you're learning to delegate and/or plan out team responsibilities or some such. I was asked this during an interview with Uber and I was completely caught off guard. I ended up fumbling and saying something along the lines of, I cannot ride a unicycle, for which I immediately regretted. Let me guess. The head of Uber's unicycling division was not impressed. They've been working okay rickshaws pulled by unicycles. Didn't you know? One question ends all interviews. What is something you cannot do? I stumbled, stuttered, panicked, froze. Which of my flaws would I disclose? I try too hard. I'm OCD. I won't just leave perfection be. I'm too strong-willed. I'm sometimes sick. The staring at you. Answer quick. I have but one Achilles heel. I cannot balance on one wheel. You have earned your eggnog. I would have burst out laughing at that if I was interviewing you. If you ever say something stupid because you're nervous, just admit you are nervous. I once got a job partly because of my honest answer to this: I need to know why I am doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind. Without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. The place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace. And they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. This is me. I'll help my husband with projects in the garage. Working on the car, building things, etc. And I always want to know why or how we're doing it. It drives him crazy because he doesn't want to stop work to explain it. He was in the army and trained to just do what he was told without question. But I can't function like that. I can't mindlessly do something without knowing what its purpose is. My life growing up. Helped my dad with chores and animals every weekend and never knew when we would be stopping or if I had more after I finished my current task. It helped my work ethic in the long run, but dang, I'm laying it all out there when my kids get older. We gonna mow, pull weeds, and mulch. Should take 4 hours and we'll get ice cream afterwards. Done. I interviewed a girl once and she said, honestly, cake. I can never say no to it. And she was so genuine, and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions. As though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. And in another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while and said, gosh, I'm sorry. There are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers, not a perfect answer. Just people that seemed comfortable and normal. Lol. Seems like the cake answer is a little too cut-easy and a cop-out. But you're totally right. Being on both ends in my professional experience, I found that as an interviewee the best thing you can do is just try to make the whole experience as comfortable and relaxed as possible for everyone involved. The interviewer hates the process just as much as you. Of course, do your research about the company. Think of relevant questions to ask the interviewer. Prepare for difficult interview questions. And don't be a moron. Her saying cake was so authentic. I'm positive she didn't plan it. That just came naturally to her. Lol. If I tried to pull off that line in an interview, I'm sure it would come off as awkward and saccharine. Like you said. I ask this question and then tell them about how I accidentally took down a regional data center, exposing a serious design flaw in our network. Wait. Do you pause and let them answer? Tell me about your biggest flaw. Sometimes I can't get word in edgewy. My biggest flaw is that time I wired a data center wrong and it electrocuted a guy. Also talk too much sometimes. When I was graduating college, I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was, the whole, say a weakness that's actually a positive has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up. But mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. I did the same thing when I got my current job. I told them I have ADHD. But it's not too much of an issue, as it has forced me to become incredibly organized and keep notes and checklists and calendar reminders. So I rarely forget stuff. And I'm more organized than most. The only problem is that I sometimes worry about whether I've forgotten something anyway. And need to double check things. Doesn't that just make this a bad question for an interview? Well, it depends how you measure good and bad. For low-level positions, they're not looking to build a profile on you based on your literal answer. They're looking more for how you answer. Are you giving a lifeless robotic answer, or are you giving a relatable human answer? Are you comfortable discussing things like this, or does it make you panicky? Are you giving something planned or introspective? And then for higher-level positions, you should have enough experience to actually know your weaknesses, and this would get more field-specific and relative. And at this point all the gimmicky answers would be a no-go. So essentially there's more being evaluated during interviews than the literal answers given. Hope this helps a little, but yeah, I hate the question too. Honesty. I don't think honesty is a weakness. I don't give a frick what you think. I need to say this in an interview before I die. An excellent question, she said in reply. I'm usually drunk. And I'm frequently high. I waste all my time till the end of the day. I care about nothing. I'm here for the pay. I fake lots of sickness. I'm rarely on time. I use my computer for Netflix and Prime. I shirk every duty. I don't think ahead. I steal people's lunches from fridges. She said. I'm racist and ageist and sexist and mean. A zealot. A bigot and all in between. I'm dismal and totally dreadful. You see. He listened politely. He wrote. Honesty. Plot twist, you get hired for the job as a geriatric. For my current job, I said that I had a hard time sharing my ideas with new groups. Idea Hogger 18. User C fell 4. I said I don't like letting go of unfinished projects during my interviews. I feel like it shows that I'm dedicated to the work I take on. Be careful of humblebrags. Some of them are overused. For example, I know some people say I'm a workaholic as a weakness. And you'd think that would make you sound very hardworking, but it's been heard 1,000 times and is not unique or strong. The trick is to say something negative then immediately spin it like, truthfully. I have not been fond of teamwork. Preferring to work autonomously. However, in my current role I was forced to quickly shed that bad habit, and now I absolutely thrive in team environments which your team has at ______. Why do you want to work here? I'd say my greatest weakness is listening. What's your greatest weakness? Finishing other people's sentences. Sandwiches. I take words too literally. Can you give an example? Yes. I'm terrible at interviews. The more I think of it, saying this half joking would get a laugh and show you as overachieving if you had done well in the interviews. Only if it's the first time they heard it. Otherwise they will give you an unamused glance and make you even more uncomfortable. I'm bad at interviews. I guess I don't do them very often. I have typically stayed at previous jobs for a long time. Says here on your resume. No. You don't. I said this once. I got the job.